Shocking truth, 7 Hells Angels in disaster at Charity Run, then a 90-year-old hero steps up. The sun blazed down on the annual Charity Run in Cedar Grove, but a chill swept through the crowd as a roaring roar of motorcycles shattered the festive atmosphere. Backed by the heavy thrum of engines, 7 Hells Angels thundered into the scene like a pack of wolves, leather jackets gleaming ominously in the bright light. Their presence was electrifying, a stark contrast to the smiling families and bouncing children. And just like that, joy turned to tension. You could almost hear the collective gasp of the onlookers, a chorus of disbelief and fear. What were they doing here? With each rev of the engines, spectators exchanged nervous glances. Some held their breath. Others instinctively grasped their loved ones. It was more than the sheer number of motorcycles, it was the palpable air of danger. Everyone knew the rumors, the banter of wild parties, of brawls that left streets running red. But today was supposed to be about charity. A cause to help the less fortunate. Instead, it felt like a ticking bomb ready to explode. As the bikers dismounted, a hush fell over the crowd. These men had seen things. They were battle-hardened and untouchable, their tattoos a language of their own, telling stories of past fights and victories. But this wasn't the Wild West. It was a sunny Saturday, and they were out of place. The tension thickened like smoke in the air, dangerous and lingering. Was it just intimidation, or were they here with another agenda? Then, in a blinding flash, chaos erupted. Screams pierced the air as one biker lost control and plowed straight into a group of runners, sending bodies flying like rag dolls. Gasps mingled with shouts, panic-stricken faces turning ghost white. It was all a blur, a whirlwind of flashing lights, screaming sirens, and chaos. In the midst of it all, one figure stood defiant. A 90-year-old man, gray hair fluttering in the wind, stumbled forward. His cane tapped rhythmically against the pavement as he moved toward the fallen runners. Ignoring the craziness around him, he seemed a beacon of calm in a frantic storm. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The crowd's shock morphed into awe. What could this frail-looking man do in such a situation? Was he about to risk his life for total strangers? The weight of hope clashed with panic, and in that moment, everything hung in balance. Would he reach them in time? As the tension crackled like fireworks, everyone watched, breathless, as the old man closed the gap. The air was electric, the room alive with uncertain energy. And then, just as he knelt to help, a shout pierced the air, drawing everyone's attention. What was brewing behind the bending shadows of the chaos? Who would step up next? The questions loomed like a dark cloud, heavy and threatening. Would the hero's courage turn the tide, or was more chaos still yet to come? The answers felt tantalizingly close, just out of reach. The moment hung in the air, suffocating and thick, as the crowd struggled to process the unfolding calamity. The injured lay sprawled on the ground, some gasping for air, their faces twisted in shock and pain. A thin sheen of sweat glistened on the old man's forehead as his hands hovered over a young woman, motionless beside him. Time slowed as he reached her side, heart pounding, fear clawing at him with insatiable grasp. "Don't move, sweetheart," he whispered, his voice cracking. He fished in his pocket for a handkerchief to stanch the blood oozing from her leg. The world around him erupted in chaos, shouts, sirens blaring in the distance, and the roar of retreating motorcycles reverberating in waves. With each passing second, the panic magnified. Suddenly, another figure burst through the haze. A woman, mid-30s, raced with purpose, her eyes darting across the chaos, searching for survivors, an instinctive response, rooted deep in her nurse training. "I'll help. I'll help," she shouted, falling beside the old man, her hands already at work. Together, they formed a makeshift triage, blocking out the world beyond the immediate crisis. However, the grim realization settled in that they were outmatched. Beyond those few they could help, a sea of chaos unfolded. Distant screams echoed, and the throng of people began to scatter, a human wave crashing against one another in sheer panic. "Get the paramedics here. Now," someone yelled from the periphery. But with all the noise, the urgency fell deaf to frightened ears. The once cheerful charity run had morphed into a surreal nightmare. Amidst this, shards of anger pierced through the fear. What was the motive behind the Hells Angels' arrival? Did they know this would happen? As the old man used all the strength left in his trembling hands to tend to the injured woman, a wave of anger pressed against him. Had they come to ruin a moment of hope? Or was it simply a coincidence, a reckless mishap in the middle of a good cause? A sudden movement caught his eye, and he squinted through the thick smoke of despair. One of the Hells Angels, a broad-shouldered man with a long beard, stood at the edge of the crowd, observing. For a moment, their eyes locked. In that tense exchange, the old man saw something flicker in the biker: doubt, perhaps. Uncertainty. But before he could process it, the biker turned, revving his engine, and in an instant, he disappeared into the cacophony. Suddenly, an earth-shattering explosion of noise erupted. A vehicle, perhaps a police car, appeared around the bend, sirens wailing like banshees, but with it came a dark foreboding. Shadows were shifting in the distance and more bikes were lining up. What had they really brought to this charity run? Was this only the beginning of something much darker? With adrenaline pumping, the old man's cane slipped from his grip as he struggled to maintain his steady rhythm. He scooped the woman's hand in his own, holding tightly as if to impart strength. What if more chaos was still lurking? Would he have the courage to confront whatever storm lay ahead? "Hold on, please, hold on," he breathed, the urgency of the moment gripping his heart, but as the tension bled into the crowd, it was clear they were far from finished. Would this frail hero hold the line against an approaching tide of violence and dread, or was Cedar Grove poised on the brink of something far worse? The upcoming moments were teetering on the edge of disaster. A sudden screech of tires echoed as a squad car skidded to a halt, flinging up a plume of dust and debris that hung heavily above the crowd. Officers leapt out, faces set in grim determination, shouting commands that mingled with the cacophony of chaos. The old man turned his head, his heart racing. Would the arrival of law enforcement provide the salvation he desperately needed or simply fuel the fire? "Everyone back! Back!" shouted an officer, pushing through the throng. But the panic in the crowd seemed to grow, people jostling and falling over one another, desperate to escape the scene. Everywhere he looked, faces twisted in fear, the injured and terrified merging into a single mass of despair. "Stay with me," he urged, squeezing the young woman's hand tighter. Blood trickled steadily from the wound, soaking the handkerchief he pressed against her leg. Who was she? A stranger? A friend? At that moment, it didn't matter. All that existed was her life pulsing weakly beneath his grip. The nurse beside him leaned in closer, her brow etched with concentration. "We need to elevate her leg," she said, her voice steady a lighthouse amid the storm. "Right." He stammered, shifting beneath the weight of the chaos, the world suddenly narrowing down to their little patch of crisis. They propped the girl's leg against the old man's knee. The sight of her pale face haunted him. She was far too young to be a victim of this madness. Then came the rumble, the powerful roar of engines growing louder as more motorcycles crested the hill. Fear rippled through the crowd like a wave, pushing back against the authority of the arriving officers. The sight was enough to send the already frayed nerves into overdrive. What were they doing? "Stay with her," the nurse demanded as she raced towards the unfolding scene, ready to confront the looming threat, her blue scrubs contrasting sharply against the gathering darkness. He watched her vanish into the throng and felt a surge of helplessness, but it was at that moment, amid the chaos, that something else pulled at his heartstrings. The biker with the beard, the one who had observed yet not engaged. He felt that flicker of doubt once more. The old man steeled himself, his pulse quickening. He had to know what lay beneath the rough exterior of this gang. He pushed through the mass of panicked bodies, determined to confront the man. As the biker dismounted, confusion danced across his face, a hint of remorse flickering in his eyes. The old man felt that familiar anger start to simmer again, hot and raw. Why are you here?" he barked, his voice barely making it through the noise surrounding them. The biker looked back, and for a brief moment, the chaos faded. We didn't mean for this to happen," he shouted hoarsely, raising his hands as if to show he meant no harm. "We were just trying to protect our turf." "What turf?" snapped the old man. "You've torn this town apart." The biker seemed to wrestle with his words, a storm brewing behind his eyes. "I can help. We didn't want this." Just as the old man opened his mouth to respond, another explosion echoed, sending a shockwave through the crowd, and the biker's face turned pale. "Run!" he yelled, and just like that, fear seized the air again, a surge of bodies in a frenzied retreat. But the old man was rooted in place, heart pounding, lingering before a wave of darkness. What had they unleashed? Were the Hell's Angels really just pawns in a bigger game, or were they the very instigators of the chaos unfolding? In the chaos, he caught a glimpse of the young woman. She was moving, or was that just his imagination? Would he fight through this storm to grasp a glimmer of hope? Or were they all destined to drown in despair? The answers loomed ahead as shadows moved closer, racing towards them. Would Cedar Grove survive this night, or was this darkness only the beginning? The explosion had torn the night, leaving a thundering silence in its wake. Panic spread through the crowd like wildfire, each person desperate to escape the impending doom. The old man stood frozen, straddling the line between instinct and reason, his thoughts spiraling. "Come on, we have to go." A voice pierced through the haze. It was his daughter, her face pale but determined. Grabbing his arm, she began pulling him backward, away from the chaos. Yet, his gaze remained locked on the biker with the bushy beard, who was now yelling for people to move. "Why are you still here?" she shouted, urgency lacing her words. "What if he is telling the truth?" he replied, taking a step toward the biker. The crowd surged, creating a sea of terrified faces, torn between flight and fight. The chaos threatened to swallow them whole, the tension crackled as the bikers revved their engines. Did they come for rescue or revenge? He grappled with uncertainty, but he had to know more. Suddenly, the dust settled for a fleeting second, and the biker met his eyes. "We didn't know. We don't want any of this." The desperation in his voice was palpable, stirring something within the old man. "Then help us," he shouted back, almost pleading. Before the biker could respond, the screech of tires cut through the air again, another vehicle approaching, one not belonging to the officers. A black van skidded to a halt, the tires protesting against the asphalt. The old man's heart raced like a drum, a sense of foreboding creeping up his spine. What now? Stay close. His daughter pulled at him, but a sense of duty ignited within him. Guys! It's coming from everywhere. An officer yelled, panic spilling into the radio chatter. The old man squinted as the shadows from the van spilled out. Figures in black emerged, shrouded in menace. The crowd erupted, screams tangled with shouts of confusion. His grip on the young woman's hand tightened. Where was the nurse? Did she even make it back? Only seconds felt like an eternity as chaos enveloped him once again. One of the figures from the van raised a weapon, pointing it toward the crowd. Adrenaline sent a jolt through his body as instinct kicked in. Get down! He yelled, throwing himself over the young woman just as a shot rang out. The crack echoed, the world slowed. People shouted, and fear morphed into a living nightmare. In that moment, he realized the truth. This wasn't an isolated incident, it was a clash of powers, a dance of devastation that threatened to obliterate everything he cared about. As the first officer rushed toward the gunman, bullets buzzing like angry hornets, confusion erupted into calamity that he pushed off the ground, adrenaline coursing through him as he scrambled to find his footing amidst the chaos. "We have to move," he yelled to his daughter, and with urgency, they began to retreat, weaving through the panicked crowd. But stepping back, the biker emerged again, grabbing the old man's arm. "You can trust me. If you want to survive, you need to follow me." Panic flooded him. This could be a trap. Against the cacophony, he saw the flicker of life in the girl's eyes. Was there a way to save her while catering to this newfound allegiance? As they moved, sirens wailed in the distance, a promise of rescue or a harbinger of doom. The old man faced a choice: trust the biker and follow him into the unknown, or stick with the officers in what could simply become a deadly standoff. Either way, they were running out of time. Could he lead them all to safety in the midst of this chaos, or had he just sealed their fates? The truth was murkier than ever, and as the shadows closed in, the stakes rose. What lay ahead was uncharted. Did he have what it took to confront the darkness? And in that moment, beneath the roar of engines and the shouts of fear, a new question arose: how deep did the conspiracy run, and could anyone be trusted at all? The ground shook beneath their feet as the chaos unfolded around them. The old man felt his daughter's grip tighten on his arm, her eyes gleaming with fear and desperation. "Dad! We can't just stand here," she pleaded, tears filling her voice. It was a plea that cut through the turmoil, a reminder of what was at stake. He glanced back at the biker, whose eyes radiated a mixture of urgency and conviction. "Trust me," the biker repeated, desperation rendering his voice almost a growl. "You'll get out alive, I promise." The flames of the explosion flickered in the distance, illuminating the dread on the old man's face. Doubt battled with instinct, but he knew time was slipping through his fingers like sand. "Okay," he finally said, a deep breath catching in his throat. He felt his daughter's anxious pulse beneath his hand, urging him forward as he nodded to the biker. They dashed away from the chaos, weaving between panicked bodies. The biker led them to a nearby alley, a dark passageway that swallowed the frantic sounds of the street. The moment they were away from the open space, the biker slowed down, panting as he turned to look at them. "You have to understand, it's worse than you think. They're not just here for the charity run. They're here for something more, sinister." "What do you mean?" the old man asked, his heartbeat echoing like a tambourine in his ears. The word sinister hung in the air between them, setting off alarm bells in his mind. "Follow me," the biker urged again, urgency pouring from him. They began to move, slipping through a back door that led into a small, dimly lit building. The walls were cold and damp, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Inside, muffled sounds filtered through the walls, whispers and distant shouting weaving a sinister tapestry of conspiracy. The biker motioned for them to be quiet as they crept further into the shadows. "They have a plan, one that will change everything." "What kind of plan?" The old man's voice was hoarse, struggling to keep up with the adrenaline coursing through him. "An attack. Something big is coming," the biker replied, his eyes darting around as if the walls themselves had ears. "But they need a distraction. And that's what tonight was, just a show to keep everyone busy." Feelings of dread twisted in the old man's gut. What could possibly be happening? How had good intentions morphed into a deadly scheme? Before he could ask more questions, the door at the end of the hallway creaked open, and a shadowy figure loomed into sight. "Help him!" shouted a familiar voice from the back of the crowd. It was the nurse, her expression frantic as she beckoned to them through a narrow space. "He's hurt, he needs boom." The sound reverberated through the building, a blast that rattled the windows and nearly toppled them over. Dust rained down like a curse unleashed. The old man's heart raced, the world spinning as he took a step back. "We're running out of time," the biker yelled over the roar. "We have to go now, or we will be caught in the crossfire." The old man looked to his daughter and then back at the biker, dread mixing with a spark of bravery. "No!" he shouted back, arms swinging in defiance. We can't leave anyone behind. Then we're all dead. The biker's urgency climbed higher, fists clenched. You need to make a choice now. Fear clawed at him, and as he caught his daughter's terrified gaze, the reality hit him like a punch. Each second mattered, and together they faced a decision stripping away any semblance of safety. The shadows closed in as panic swirled, riddling him with doubt. He faced a moment of truth, a singular choice that could change everything. Would they risk it all to save a life, or would they flee, needing to protect their own? And then came a chilling whisper through the halls, "They're coming." What awaited them? The choice of survival or sacrifice loomed ahead like a dark specter, hungry for action. Would they be swallowed by the night, or could they fight back against the encroaching darkness? The air was thick with tension as the shadowy figure grew clearer. It was a man, gasping for air, clutching his side where blood blossomed like a gruesome flower. The nurse was at his side, her hands trembling as she tried to staunch the flow. Her eyes flared with urgency as she looked at the old man and his daughter. "Please. He needs help. We can't just leave him." The old man hesitated, torn between the instinct to protect his daughter and the desperate plea for life that hung in the air. It felt like the world around him had shrunk, the chaos outside fading to a dull roar as his heart pounded in his chest. He could feel his daughter's grip tighten even more, fear radiating off her. "Dad," she whispered, her voice quavering. "What do we do?" The biker's eyes darted from the wounded man to the door. He was visibly on edge, breathing heavily, and sweat dripped down his temples. "I get it," he said, "but if you help him, we'll all be sitting ducks. They'll be here any moment." But how could he turn his back on someone in need? The thought twisted inside him like a knife. We can't just abandon him. What if he is the key to all this? What if he knows what's really happening? Outside the walls, the distant wails of sirens began to converge and the thumps of heavy boots approached. They were running out of time. "Please!" the nurse cried, her voice breaking. "He won't survive without help. I can't do this alone. I need you." The decision yearned for clarity, but the weight of it pulled at the old man's chest. He glanced at his daughter again. Her face was pale, reflecting the horror all around them. Each pulse of uncertainty felt like a drumbeat urging him to action. Then, just as he made up his mind, the door to the hall swung open with a ferocious crash. Figures clad in dark uniforms stormed in. The biker immediately shoved the old man and his daughter farther into the shadows, pulling a knife from his jacket. "Stay back!" the biker shouted, but against the armed men, his tough demeanor seemed almost laughable. Heart racing, the old man instinctively grabbed his daughter, yanking her toward an emergency exit labeled with a flickering light. "We have to." But it was too late. One of the intruders spotted them. "There!" he shouted, pointing. Gunfire erupted in a shocking cascade of sound, ricocheting off the walls with brutal precision. The old man instinctively shielded his daughter, yanking her into the narrow space where the nurse crouched with the injured man. "Get down!" the biker roared, lunging forward as more footsteps thundered behind them. The air vibrated with chaos, bullets flying past like demonic whispers that promised death. The nurse cried out in horror as a glass window shattered beside her. The old man felt the cold tendrils of panic clutch at his throat. This wasn't just a choice anymore, it was survival. "Follow me!" the biker shouted, motioning toward the door as he fought off an attacker. With urgency overtaking them, the old man grabbed his daughter's hand and rushed toward the exit, the gritty floor sticking to his shoes as every instinct screamed to run. But as they sped through the exit, a high-pitched whistle sliced through the air, louder and more menacing than the gunfire. It echoed down the alley, causing dread to snag at their heels. Suddenly, a blinding light engulfed the alley, illuminating their fearful faces in its stark glow. "What is that?" the old man gasped, shielding his eyes. The biker turned, dread pooling in his expression. "We have to move. Now." And with that, They shoved through the door into a new realm of darkness. What lay beyond felt more threatening than anything they had faced. What horrors awaited them in the night, unthinkable yet looming closer. Would they have the strength to confront what was about to unfold? The darkness enveloped them, swallowing their cries and the chaos behind them. The old man blinked, trying to adjust to the dimness as his heart hammered in his chest. His daughter tugged at his sleeve, her wide eyes reflecting nothing but fear. Was this an escape or a new nightmare? "Keep close," he whispered urgently, leading her deeper into the shadows. The biker, adrenaline surging, scanned their surroundings, the knife still gripped tightly in his hand. The high-pitched whistle had faded, but a heavy silence now pressed down on them. What had they just escaped? The old man took a cautious step, feeling something crunch underfoot. He crouched and illuminated a small patch of ground with his phone's flashlight. Broken glass. What the hell? He mumbled, looking back at the others. The walls surrounding them were damp, graffiti-covered, bearing messages of despair and confusion. "Where are we?" His daughter breathed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Looks like an abandoned building," the biker replied, his voice grim. "We can't stay here long. They'll be searching for us." Reality crashed around him. "We need to get back to the nurse and the man." His heart sank, remembering the wounded figure left behind, a man embraced by uncertainty and pain. "No." The biker snapped, eyes glinting with intensity. "If we go back, we'll be dead too. We need to find an exit, somewhere to hide until the coast is clear." The old man felt a surge of anger. "You think I can just walk away? That man needs help. He could have answers." Suddenly, a muffled voice echoed down a corridor, a desperate groan. "Help, someone, please. The nurse. Did you hear that?" The old man urged, feeling a spark of hope. But the biker shook his head violently. "Don't. We don't know what's waiting for us. We can't risk it." Yet the old man's heart was heavy with conflict. The sirens still blared outside, and every instinct told him they were running out of time. Ignoring the biker, he pressed forward, his daughter hesitantly trailing behind. "Please help," the frail voice guided him deeper into the shadows, a beacon beckoning for rescue. They turned a corner and stumbled upon a flickering light spilling from an open door. The old man peered inside. The nurse, still desperately trying to apply pressure to the wounded man's side, looked up, eyes widening in relief. "Thank God!" she gasped, her voice a mix of joy and fear. "I thought you'd left us." She glanced nervously at the door. "They'll be here any moment. We have to move." The biker reluctantly moved to join them, eyeing the man who lay bleeding on the floor. "What do you expect us to do? We're not equipped to handle this." "We help him," the old man replied, determination flooding his voice. "I couldn't abandon him then, and I won't now." A slam echoed from the entrance, reverberating down the hall. The door rattled. They were coming. Fear crept back into his bones. "Get him up!" the nurse shouted, tugging the wounded man's arm. "What if they see us?" The biker pressed, glancing over the threshold, his voice a whisper now. "Then we make a run for it. Together." The old man's mind raced. Save him or flee? Time pressed down like a weight. Panic threatened to consume them. The door splintered as something heavy crashed against it. This was a mistake. The biker spat, backing away. "No!" he shouted back, gripping the injured man's arm, trying to pull him up. "We can't leave him." But as they started to haul the man upright, another voice broke through the chaos, chilling him to the core. "There's no point in hiding frozen," dread spread through him. Who was this new threat? "Don't you want to know the truth?" Cold realization gripped him, a haunting question echoing in the dark. What truth was hidden in this maelstrom? What awaited them in the light, and could they uncover it before it was too late? The old man's breath caught in his throat. The voice, smooth yet drenched in menace, held an authority that sent shivers coursing through his spine. He glanced at the nurse, who wore a face of bewilderment and panic, and then back at the biker, whose body had gone rigid, the knife slipping ever so slightly in his grip. "Who are you?" the biker demanded, his voice strained, barely a whisper, as if raising it would provoke whatever horror lingered in the shadows. A figure stepped into the dim light, half obscured by the doorway, silhouetted ominously against the flickering illumination. The shadow moved fluidly, and with each step into the room, it exuded a chilling calm, an unsettling contrast to the chaos surrounding them. The old man struggled to see the person's face, but he could feel the piercing intensity of their gaze. "They're coming," the figure said softly, echoing the sentiment they all had internalized. "But you need to understand the truth makes all the difference. Enough with the riddles." The old man shouted, a burst of anger illuminating the edges of his fear. "What truth are you talking about?" The figure stepped closer, revealing a young man, wild dark hair framing his sharp features. His expression was cold and almost amused. "You're in over your head, old man. You think saving that guy will make any difference?" As another thud resonated through the door, the nurse yanked on the old man's arm. "We don't have time for this. They'll break through any second." "No. Wait." The old man pleaded, torn between the urgency of escape and the burning desire for answers. "If he knows something, they know everything." The biker interrupted, panic seeping through his voice. "They wouldn't have chased us if they didn't." "Ah, but you see," the dark-haired man drawled, an unsettling smile forming, "this isn't about the man." He pointed at the wounded figure on the floor. "Not really. It's about a bigger game." "What game?" The old man pressed, trying to fill the ragged void of confusion in his mind. "You all are mere pawns," the man said, a haunting glint in his eyes. "And those outside? They're not the real threat." Before he could finish, the door rattled violently again, splintering the wood further. Panic surged through all of them, the noise scraping the edges of their composure. "Now look what you did," the biker hissed, backing away as he managed to back himself against the wall. The old man's heart hitched. "We have to make a choice. Fight or flight." In that moment, the dark-haired man slid his hand into his pocket, revealing a small device gleaming coldly. "You want answers? Fine. But you might not like what you hear. Listen closely." As the door shuttered again, and the injured man groaned in pain, the nurse cried out, "We're out of time." "What are you doing?" "We need to go." The old man's mind raced. What if he's right? What if there's something bigger than us? Suddenly, the device beeped, and the man leaned closer. "Here's the truth, not all of you will walk out of here." A loud crash disrupted the room. The door gave way, flying open with a deafening echo, revealing dark figures filling the entrance, and their eyes glowed with predatory hunger. The implications of the dark-haired man's words lingered in the air like a stench, thick and suffocating. Everything took a grim turn as a chilling realization washed over the old man. The battle ahead wasn't just for survival, it was a fight for the truth, a truth that threatened to engulf them all. As shadows rushed toward them, the question loomed: could they decipher the truth before it consumed them whole? The room exploded into chaos. The dark figures surged forward, their movements sharp and aggressive, like wolves hunting in a frenzy. The old man felt his heart race, each thump echoing in his ears as he registered the horrors unfolding. The nurse screamed, pressing herself against the wall, eyes wide with fear. "Stay back!" the biker yelled, raising the knife, though his hands shook. The weapon seemed almost useless against the force of dread flooding into the room. The dark-haired man, seemingly unfazed, stood at the center of the brewing storm. "We need to act," he barked, voice steady and commanding. "Not everyone will make it, but we can change the odds." "What are you talking about?" the old man snapped, panic clawing at his throat. "They'll rip us to shreds." As if on cue, one of the shadowy figures lunged at the nurse, reaching for her with long, claw-like fingers. The old man reacted on instinct, lunging forward to grab her arm and pull her out of reach. She stumbled back, gasping, the door swinging behind her, granting a glimpse of the swirling darkness beyond. "Run!" the biker shouted, his feet moving, dragging the injured man toward the back of the room. The old man knew they needed to escape, but leaving everything felt like abandoning their last chance. "Don't you understand? They're hunting for the truth, just as much as we are," the dark-haired man insisted. His eyes locked onto the old man's. "If they catch us, they'll bury it. Forever." Before the old man could process the weight of those words, the first figure smashed through the door, lunging with a speed that took his breath away. The biker swung wildly, the blade catching the intruder's side, but it was like stabbing a shadow. The creature faltered, glancing back as if surprised by the pain, but it didn't stop its advance. In that moment, the pain on the floor groaned again, and the old man's heart twisted. The wounded man, whose fate now seemed tied to theirs, stirred, blood pooling beneath him. Anguish clawed at the old man's heart as he stared at the fractured assembly before him, the choices piling up like the shadows across the room. "Help him!" the nurse cried, her voice breaking. "We can't just leave him." But the urgency was suffocating. The dark-haired man pushed the old man toward the back where the biker had shoved the injured man aside in a desperate attempt to shield him. "You want to save him? Do it now. The truth he carries can save us all." "Truth!" The old man's voice rose in fury. "Truth won't save us from these monsters. Will fighting them?" The man's gaze hardened. His words snapped like a whip, commanding the old man's attention. "It's not just about your safety. It's about everyone. The choices will reverberate beyond this room." Then, a loud shriek cut through the air. The nurse. As she backed away, she tripped, crashing to the floor. One of the figures had her, dragging her into the darkness. "Help! Please!" Her shouts were muffled, swallowed by the ravenous shadows. Time froze for an agonizing moment. The old man could feel his heart crashing against his ribs. The truth stared back. Could he sacrifice the few for the sake of the many? Every instinct screamed to run, to escape, but to leave her behind felt unbearable. "Make a choice," the dark-haired man urged. "Which will you save?" Terror gripped him tight, his fists clenched at his sides. The shadows surged, their advance a ferocious tide. Where would their path lead? With no time to spare, the dark-haired man flicked the device, the sound echoing ominously in the chaos. "This is how you set the pieces in motion." The air crackled suddenly, alight with energy yet unseen. A decision loomed heavy, dark and inevitable. Would they fight or flee? The truth was coming for them all, and just then, a blinding flash lit up the room, sparking a new urgency that left everyone gasping. In that moment, the old man wondered, had they awakened a force they couldn't control? What truth awaited them on the other side? The air crackled with anticipation as the blinding flash faded, revealing a stark and surreal silence. It felt surreal, like stepping from chaos into stillness. The shadows that had once threatened to consume them seemed to pause, momentarily halted by this unexpected jolt. Time stretched, each heartbeat echoing like a drum. The old man's mind raced. What just happened? What had they awakened? He turned, meeting the eyes of the young man bearing the sinister smile and the urgency that mirrored his own. "What did you do?" he gasped, the word barely escaping his lips. But the dark-haired man didn't respond. Instead, he stared intently toward the doorway, tension thickening the air like smoke. Without warning, the oppressive silence shattered. A wave of noise burst forth, shattering the moment as if the very fabric of reality had frayed. The dark figures reeled, disoriented by the sudden surge of energy. Seizing the moment, the biker charged forward with renewed bravado, knife gleaming in the chaotic light. "Now! Go!" he shouted, and the urgency sparked the others into action. The old man, heart racing, lunged toward the nurse, grasping her hand and pulling her upright. She, eyes wide with fear, nodded resolutely. "We need to help him." They hurried to the wounded man. "We need to get him to safety," the nurse urged, breathless, panic driving her movements. The old man felt an unyielding knot within him, a swirl of dread and determination. Could they truly save him? Suddenly, the dark-haired man gripped the old man's arm tightly. "You don't understand. Every choice has consequences. Choice is power." He flung open the door, the faces of the shadowy figures swirling in the murky light, but they paused, as if caught in that blinding moment. "Go. Now." The biker bellowed. The band of terrified souls surged forward, sprinting from the chaos behind them. They tore through the back exit, gasping for the cool night air. But the echoes of despair lingered, shadows reaching after them like tendrils of smoke. They skidded to a stop in the alleyway, panting heavily, a cacophony of sirens thrumming through the distance. The night felt colder, more menacing. The old man and his daughter shared frantic glances, etched with fear but also deep resolve. Who knew what perfidy lay ahead? The biker, adrenaline pulsing, scanned the horizon. "We need to regroup. We can't be unprepared." Silence returned, the madness fading into a trembling hush. The old man's heart thundered against his ribs as he turned back toward the hidden door. "Wait!" he shouted, desperation rasping in his throat. He couldn't just leave behind the truth. The truth that had almost slipped through their fingers in that tight space. He needed to stand firm. "We can't let this happen. We need to uncover the truth." The dark-haired man moved beside him, shadows casting over his expression. "You really want to know the truth? Then you have to face the consequences of that knowledge." As if summoned by destiny, the moon broke through the clouds, illuminating the street. The old man fought a rising tide of fear. He felt compelled, a calling to confront the looming monstrosities that had threatened to swallow them all whole. A glimmer of resolve ignited within him like a freshly struck match. "We won't let fear dictate our actions," he declared, voice steady and unwavering. "Let us finish this and ensure nobody else suffers." The nurse nodded vigorously. "I'm with you. We can't retreat into silence." The biker hesitated but ultimately grabbed the old man's shoulder, grounding him. "All right. We go back in together. We find the truth and we expose them." And so they moved as a unit, moving back toward the heart of the storm. The shadows loomed ahead, grotesque shapes flickering like flame. They walked into the darkness, propelled by courage and desperation. An unspoken bond tethered them all, a fierce determination to unmask the very devils of deception. As they stood united against the tyranny of despair, their resolve solidified. The truth would rise against all odds. They sensed the shadows could not win, they would not fall prey to fear. In this moment, the old man's heart swelled with hope. Together, they would make a stand. The grizzled figure that had once seemed frail was reborn. He was not simply an old man, he was a warrior, fierce and untamed. Suddenly the shadowy figures surged toward them, but the old man stood tall, shouting out, "We won't back down." Every breath he took imbued with the clarity of purpose. The truth awaited and today, they would seize it. Resolved and relentless, they advanced, ready to carve their path through the darkness, and for the first time, each step felt like the beginning of something profoundly transformative. They charged forward, ready to face the darkness head-on, and in that moment of unity, they became more than survivors, they became an unstoppable force. Now, more than ever, the night belonged to them. You know what you need to do: subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.